So welcome to today's The Hindu Daily News Analysis. So today's 5th December 2018. So the first article we are going to discuss is about the reducing carbon emission. So there are two articles that is appeared in the today's newspaper which is related to the climate change or the global warming. The first is related to the stubble burning and the other is directly related to reducing the carbon emission. So both the articles become significant for the civil services examination, and we will be discussing only this article in this video. So this is the article that is appeared in the Hindu newspaper, that is shift to low carbon. So let's analyze why this has been appeared in the newspaper and the significance of this. So India's stake in this low carbon world economy are among the highest, as it is on the front line of the climate disaster. So per year emission of the India as a whole, that is the CO2 or the greenhouse gas emission of the India, is the highest. So there is an anomaly related to this, that the per capita or the per individual emission of the CO2 of India is the lowest, whereas when it comes collective or when it is counted all together as a country, the CO2 emission of India stands at the highest level, and this is leading to climate disasters. So this topic comes under the GS paper 3, that is conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, and environmental impact assessment. So let's get into the detailed analysis. Here the climate change caused calamities in India. Let's analyze few of the calamities that happened in the recent times. The rains and floods and the landslides in the Kerala, which have killed 373 people since May 13. So this is the one of the reason and the devastating calamity that has been happened in our state or in our nation. So in the states of Uttar Pradesh, Karnataka and Assam were battered the floods this year, and in 2015 the same has happened in the Chennai. So this devastating floods in the different regions of India is causing or creating trouble in the life of the people and creating loss of public property. Along with this, the Delhi, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana are among the states which experiences the extreme heat waves, and this is leading to sunburn. Then the coastal states are often hit by the cyclones. So these are some of the climate change caused or the climate change induced calamities that has reported recent times in India. Now let's analyze the causes for the climate change induced calamities. So here the greenhouse gas emission, of which the carbon dioxide is the predominant or the biggest component, and that make the earth warmer and lead to a more heat waves. So this carbon dioxide can trap the sunlight that is coming from the sun, and it leads to a warming of the atmosphere. So a study in the journal Scientific Reports found that the decadal mean of the daily maximum temperature for April-May in the 2010 is 40 to 42 degrees Celsius, which is so high, and it is over the large parts of India has reported an annual average of 40 to 42% of this temperature, the maximum temperature. And further, this warmer air holds more moisture, and which results in more intense rainfall and provides more energy for the storm. We know that there are two kinds of cyclones. One is the tropical and the temperate. And when it comes to the tropical cyclones, as its water content increases, the intensity and the devastating effect of that cyclones increases. So once the temperature increases, it leads to more moisture holding capacity of the atmosphere or the wind, that leads to or that increases the intensity of the rainfall, which intensifies this tropical cyclones. And further, the climate scientists attributed this rising trends in flooding and the heat waves to the human induced climate change. So the scientists saying that it all has happened because of the anthropogenic activities, that is human induced activities. Further, let's analyze some of the carbon sources in India, and let's make an analysis of this fact. So this large point source, especially this thermal power plants, steel power plants, cement plants, fertilizer plants, then refineries and petrochemical plants contribute about 64% of all India CO2 emission. And the major contributor were the power plants. And of this 64%, 44.9% is coming from the power plant, which means the thermal power plant is contributing to the, or is the largest contributor in the thermal or the climate change in India, which is emitting the large amount of the CO2. Then a range of thermal, hydro, nuclear and renewable power plants are operating in India. Then the thermal generation constitutes more than 80% of the total energy generation in India, which means how significant this thermal energy or the thermal power plant is India. So it raises two concerns. The first one, India cannot stop this production because India is being largely dependent on this 80% of its total energy on this thermal generation. And if we are replacing this with the other kinds of energy, the alternatives. So here we don't have many alternatives, even though we are trying to implement or focusing on the renewable energies, which cannot in near future can replace this 80% of the dependency of India on the thermal power plants. So these are the two challenges. The first one is the CO2 emission that is caused because of the thermal power plants, and the second one is the alternatives, the large share. So we have to replace this 80% of the thermal energy with other sources. And this energy generation in India, the thermal power plants are coal, diesel and gas based. So all these forms of the thermal power plant is causing CO2 emission and thereby global warming. Then further, the coal-based power plants are the backbone of the Indian power sector and will continue to be a major source of the electricity generation in the country for the foreseeable future also. So we cannot replace this, or we cannot bring an alternative to this dependency in the near future. And as there is a total coal reserves of the 255.17 billion tons, and which is out of which approximately 96 billion tons are proven reserves. So India has to exploit, or India has to make use of this proven resource. So that is only through the exploration or the utilization of this for the thermal power plants. And in order to utilizing this, India has been focusing, or India is constructing more thermal power plants. Then India's CO2 emission grew by an estimated 4.6% in 2015 despite a turbulent year of economy. We know that the demonetization in the 2016 and the subsequent GST impact has hit the economy, and Indian economy has witnessed the lowest growth rate in the last 5 years during the time of 2017. And even that time, India has estimated an increase of 4.6% of the increase in total CO2 emission. So, which is a concerning fact that India is committed to reducing its CO2 emission. On the other hand, its share or its contribution to the global emission is increasing. And further, the measured by person, India's emissions are still very low, which is 1.8 tons, and which is much less than the global average of 4.2 tons. But those emissions have been growing steadily with an average growth rate over the past decade of 6%. So in 2015, we have witnessed a 4% of the growth in the CO2 emission per person, and on an average, we have witnessed a 6% of the growth in the CO2 emission in the past decade. Now let's analyze some of the carbon emission from the thermal power plant. So here the shift from the coal to natural gases is an alternative. So then another one is the improve the plant efficiency. So these measures can help us to reduce the emission of the CO2 from thermal power plants. So those measures includes the first one, shifting from the coal to the natural gas. Then second one, improve the plant efficiency. Then use biomass as the fuel. For this, we can promote the bioethanol also. Then add the renewables. So Indian government has been strongly pushing for this renewable energies in the wind, solar, etc. So this is a constructive or a good step from the side of the government. Then increase this transmission and the distribution efficiency so that we can reduce the transmission losses. And further, reduce industrial demand, for example, through the combined heat and power. So if we can reduce this industrial demand, we can reduce the production. Thereby, we can reduce the CO2 emission. Then reduce commercial demand, for example, through the improved lighting. And further, the reduced residential demand, for example, through more efficient appliances. So here the government can provide subsidized appliances to the households. So these are some of the measures which can be adopted to reduce the CO2 emission from the thermal power plants. Now let's analyze a term which is related to the CO2 emission, that is the carbon footprint. So this is the total amount of the greenhouse gases produced to directly and indirectly support the human activities, and it is usually expressed as an equivalent ton of the carbon dioxide. So the carbon footprint has got this name because it is expressed as an equivalent mass or a ton of the CO2. So some of the field or some of the areas where the CO2 or the carbon footprint is being measured is water, emission, electricity, transport, offsets, waste, recycling, gas, then the personnel because of the household and other sectors, and the fuel usage. So all this is contributing to the carbon footprint or the CO2 or the global warming gas emissions. So if there comes a question, the UPSC may be using this term related to the carbon emission. That's why we have included this carbon footprint here. And let's analyze the concerns over the carbon emission. So in the absence of a shift to a low carbon economy worldwide, the average temperature could rise by more than 2 degrees by the end of this century, and this can create devastating effects including the sea level rise, submergence of the icelands, flooding, etc. Then the hotter and the longer summer and the excessive rainfall in some areas and droughts in other will damage the crops, and also it can intensify the water scarcity. Now moving further, the warm coastal waters will turn unsuitable for the certain species of the fishes, and this can impact the biodiversity. Now let's analyze the way forward to address the carbon emission. The first one is or the climate change induced disasters, and this we will be discussing particularly to the India. So adapting to changing climate is one part of the agenda. Then Japan has invested a lot of money on this coastal defenses. So India also needs a coastal defenses because the coastal areas are often prone to the cyclones and other kinds of floods because of the heavy rainfall. And the Japan has built the world's largest underground floodwater diversion facility. And but with this coastline of the 7,500 kilometer, most of which is low lying, India cannot make such a colossal investment, and this is also a financial constraint for India. And moving further, the better early warning and the timely evacuation have had the huge payoff, at least in saving the life of the people. Then the most striking example being the massive relocation of people from the coast of the Andhra Pradesh and Odisha before the cyclone fell in that struck those areas. But adaptation will not suffice unless the mitigation takes center stage among the world's leading emitters, that is including India. So it states that there should be a collective effort from the different countries, and India should take the forehand in bringing all these countries together. And one of the example for this is the International Solar Alliance, where India has taken the first hand to bring different countries in order to improve or in order to research and develop the new and the existing renewable energy sources. And further, the country has committed, India has committed to cut in carbon emission consistent with at 2 degree temperature rise. But plans to build new coal power plants need to be abandoned. So we have already discussed that in order to utilizing the huge reserves of the coal, the government has been planning to construct more coal powered or coal fire power plants. So that projects has to be abandoned and replaced with massive ramp of wind and solar power. So coming to the solar and the wind power, India is having huge potential with regard to solar power energy because approximately 200 plus sunny days is receiving India. Further, India's stake in this low carbon world economy are among the highest as it is one on the front line of the climate disasters and is also the leading contributor to the greenhouse gas emission. So if India want to reduce this climate disasters, India want to reduce this global or the greenhouse gas emission. Apart from taking steps to adapt to the climate changes, India's voice in decarbonizing the economy is vital. Now let's get into the practice question for the day. So here the question is that the thermal power plants contributes a large share of greenhouse gas emission in India. In this regard, what are the challenges faced by India to cut down the carbon dioxide emission from the thermal power plant? So we have already discussed that the dependence of Indian electricity or the energy sector on the thermal power plant and the huge natural reserves of the coal that we are having. So if India want to utilize or to make use of this coal reserves, then the largest or the best way is to promote the thermal power plant. So if we are promoting this thermal power plant, that will be leading to the CO2 emission. And further, the challenges includes that if India want to replace this thermal power plant, then the large amount of financial research and innovation is needed. It is because the thermal power plant contributes at least 80% of the India's energy production. So this much of energy has to be, or this much of section has to be replaced, and that cannot be done with only one sector. For this we have to promote the alternative renewable sections like solar, wind, hydro, that is small scale hydroelectricity, etc. So all this requires huge financial resource and further the research and innovation. So this technical and the financial constraints are pushing or pulling back India from replacing this thermal power plant. So with this, we are coming to the conclusion on the discussion of this is the next topic on the current affairs discussion, that is mob violence. So let's look into the news value. So the news has appeared in the today's newspaper, that is 4 arrested for the role in the Bulandshahr violences. We know that on accusing the cow vigilantes, they have lynched the attacked the man, and because of this a policeman, 2 policemen were also killed in this incident. And there has appeared an editorial in the newspaper, that is a moving menace, and further the data for the same has been given in the Hindu newspaper, so which is also significant. Now let's analyze why the topic has appeared in the news. It is because the violence in the Uttar Pradesh Bulandshahr district is yet another notice of the toll that is being taken on the civil order on account of their failure to crack down on the vigilant mobs. So this vigilant mobs is creating trouble for the life of the people, and as well as it is emerged as a law management issue. Then 2 persons, including a police inspector, lost their life to bullets fired in the Siena when the villagers gathered outside. Then a police post in protest over the rumor that the cow carcass has been found in the vicinity. So this cow vigilantism is taking the life of the people. Now the topics comes under the GS paper 3, that is challenges to the internal security through communication network, role of media and social networking sites in the internal security challenges, then basis of the cyber security, money laundering and its prevention. Now let's analyze the mob violence in India. So past 18 years India has witnessed an unusual increase in the crime rate to the mob violences. So in the name of religion, kidnapping, etc., these mob violences are carried on. Though the epidemic spreads in the form of vigilance against cow slaughter, later in spread of kidnapping and other sorts of crimes. And according to the unofficial estimate, around 120 people have been killed throughout the country, and most of this death has happened in the last 5 years. So which is the most concerning fact, that is there is an exponential growth in this vigilantism and the lynching of the persons. And more than the people that has killed in because of this cow vigilantism, it is the threat or the fear that it causes in the community or among the society is the most concerning fact. Now, let's analyze the concerns and challenges regarding the mob violence. So here, sometimes the mob violence become a conspiracy to set up the communally polarizing confrontation, and this happens especially when the election is declared or the election is approaching. And during these times, the mob violence is used to communally divide the people and to get political benefit out of this communal division. Then the mob violence often leads to lynching. This threatens the life of an individual and create panic and hatred in the society. And moving forward, the mob of 10 target minorities. Mob often targets the minorities and vulnerable sections of the society, and this creates or this makes the vulnerable securities feel insecure. Then India's PEN has conducted a survey which found that 86% of the persons killed in this cow-related lynching were Muslims and 8% were the Dalits. And moving forward, the recent spate of mob killing on rumors of the child kidnapping target strangers and these mentally challenged persons. So they are also the vulnerable sections in the society, both physically and financially. Then this bands of Go Rakshaks or the cow protection vigilantes have created an atmosphere of the fear, then purportedly acting on the suspicions of the cow slaughter to round up and lynch at will cattle traders and even the passerby alike. So they are not only or the people that is killed because of this cow vigilantism is not just the cattle traders or those slaughtered the cows, but also even those people that pass by alike, because when a mob gets formed or mob become violent, they lose their identity and a collective identity is formed, and because of this collective identity they will attack on the different peoples and they will be lost this distinction between the good and bad. And further, the probe into the killing in most cases move in parallel with investigation into the allegation of the cow slaughter or possession on beef. Then the police is picking up this political signaling or even out of fear of being outnumbered because of the cow vigilanters, and they tend to play down the gravity of the crime, and most of the crimes goes unreported. Now let's analyze the causes for the mob violence. The mob violence may be sparked variously by the disputes over the allegation of the cow smuggling or slaughter, or wild rumors of the cattle theft or the child kidnapping. So these are the different reasons or the causes which has been resulted into the mob lynching. And this hate crimes, because of the this mob violence is resulting from this hate between the communities. So this hate crimes flourishes most of all because of the enabling climate for hate speech and violences which is fostered and legitimized by the impunity assured by the state administration to the perpetrators. And most of the time this perpetrators receiving the political support, and the political leaders comes to support them openly, and this legitimized support and the political support helps them to escape from the punishment or the penalty. So this impunity that is assured from this political side is further increasing the mass violences. And further, the causes for the political violence also includes this political gain, that is increasing mob violence during the election time, that is leading to the polarization of the community and that is leading to the vote bank. Then the senior ministers and the elected representatives frequently come out in open to defend the attackers and charging the victims with provoking attacks. So here, rather than the victims, the perpetrators are getting the support from the higher levels of the society. Then these are hate crimes, not ordinarily mob violences, as this mostly target identified minority communities and disadvantaged caste. So this is not an organically formed mob. So they are formed with right intention to create hatred in the community, and they are attacking the identified minority communities and the disadvantaged caste. Now let's analyze, is it an administrative failure? So in most cases the police come too late to save the lives, and very often they register the crimes against the victims and drag their feet to charge the arrest the attackers. And further, after the lynching, the police often try to record the incident as a crime of cow smuggling, animal cruelty, rush driving, or road rage. Because of this, the gravity of the issue becomes diluted. And moving forward, there is also a deliberate, that is a criminal destruction of the evidences which could have been used against the killers. And this may be politically motivated or because of the fear. Now, let's analyze some of the directions that is given by the Supreme Court in recent time. So, as the grim threat of lynching cast a terrifying shadow over the large swathes of the country, the direction from the India's Supreme Court to all governments to take steps to prevent mob violences was a welcome step. And a new law will work if the gaps in the existing laws are what prevents the state administration from acting, which means that rather than introducing a new law, we have to fill up the gaps in the existing laws. Now let's analyze the directions given by the Supreme Court. So Supreme Court has directed the state to set up the fast track court, that to design the officers. Supreme Court also ordered the state to designate officers at SP rank as the nodal officer in each district to prevent the mob violence. And further, the state and center to broadcast radio, TV, and online messaging warning that lynching and mob violences shall invite serious consequences, which is the awareness generation, which is the preventive step. Then FIR must against persons spreading such fake or irresponsible messages or videos. So this doesn't become significant because most of the time this is being given out or being spread or is being leads to political elites, and because of this the police couldn't file an FIR against those strong persons. Then police, district administration, etc. fail to comply with the Supreme Court's direction will be deemed deliberate negligences, and further they can be brought into justice for the violation of the court order or contempt of court. Then the state to draw up compensation scheme for the lynching with provision for interim relief to the victims next to the kin within the 30 days. Then the lynching cases to be tried by the fast track court in each district and preferably concluded in the 6 months. So these are some of the directions given by the Supreme Court in order to address the issues and challenges faced by the mob violence. Now let's come to a critical analysis. So in recent years, the cases of mob lynching have increased exponentially. So which is an alarming signal for the social harmony of the nation. Then the challenge ultimately is not of law, but of our collective morality and our collective humanity. So it threatens our collective morality, or it shows that our collective morality has been lost, and this collective humanity of the Indian society. And further, the land of Mahatma Gandhi, who has the worship of non-violence, it is very disconcerting and heartbreaking to see the innocent people being prey to the people with vested interest and a particular agenda claiming to be the protector of the religion, customs, and society. So this mass killing or the mass violence is happening in the name of protection of the religion, customs, and the society. So whatever be the causes, if that non-violence is happening, it is against the principles of our Mahatma Gandhi's principles. That is our father of the nations. So we should be strictly adhering to this non-violences. Now let's analyze the role of the social media in the mob violences. Of late, we have seen as to how this technology, which is considered to be the boon for the mankind, is being used by some people to spread the rumors and the fake news that is leading to assault and death of the innocent people. So this rumors and the fake news that is spreading through this technologies, especially through the social media, is leading to the mob violences, which creates or which leads to a hatred, spread of hatred in the society. And in recent times, several instances of misuse of social networking sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp have been caused the loss of the life. And further, though the service providers have come up with modifications in the features to contain the increasing dissemination of fake news, yet it has not proven to be very effective. In this regard, recently the WhatsApp has limited the number of persons to which you can forward a message. So this restriction has been brought in those time which reported a mass killing. Then that means there is a need for strong regulation over the use of other apps, the social media apps. So with this, we are coming to the conclusion of this next topic, which discusses the Global Nutrition Report 2018. So the article, the editorial has been appeared in the today's newspaper, that is Standard Wasted. So the news is that India has 1/3 of the world's standard children. It is as per the Global Nutrition Report. This is a concerning fact. Now the topics comes under the GS paper 2, that is issues relating to development and management of the social sector services relating to health, education and human resources, and also the issues relating to poverty and hunger. Now let's get into the key points from the report. So India is facing a major malnutrition crisis as it holds almost a third of the world's burden for standing, according to this Global Nutrition Report. And further, approximately 46.6 million children who are stranded in India. With this much of children, India tops the list of the countries, and India is being followed by Nigeria, which is far behind with 13.9 million, and the Pakistan 10.7 billion. And this India and Pakistan collectively makes the South Asia the region with most number of the children with malnutrition. And further, stunting or the low height for age is caused by the long-term insufficient nutrient intake and the frequent infections. And India also accounts for 25.5 million of children who are wasted, followed by Nigeria and Indonesia. So this wasting is the low weight for the height and is a strong prediction of the mortality among the children under 5. And it is usually a result of the acute significant food shortage of the diseases. And moving forward, more than half of the world's children is impacted by wasting, that is 26.9 million lives in South Asia. As we have stated, the India and Pakistan collectively makes this region with most number of the children with wasting and stunting. And of the 3 countries that are home to the almost half, that is 47.2% of all stunted children, 2 are in Asia, with India having 46.6 million, that is 31% of the global stunted children, and Pakistan is having 10.7 million. It is as per this Global Nutrition Report. And further, globally, the report says that 150.8 million children under the 5 years are stunted, and approximately 50.5 million are wasted. And in urban areas, there are 7.1% overweight children. So we know that the nutrition or the malnutrition is not just about inadequacy of the nutrition, it is also about the overnutrition. So in urban areas, approximately 7.1% of overweight children on average, whereas in rural areas, 6.2% of the children are overweight. And moving forward, it is slightly more common among the boys, that is approximately 6.9% of the boys compared to 6.1% of the girls that are reported, that the report highlighted, that is the obesity or overweight. Then as with obesity, among adult, women are more overweight than among the men. So when it comes to the children, it is the boys, and when it comes to the adults, it is the women who are reported overweight. Then conversely, the diabetes is more common among the men than the women. That is 9% versus 7.9% respectively as per the 2014 report. Now let's analyze the challenges and the concerns with respect to this global or the nutrition, ensuring the nutrition to all. So the health, longevity and the well-being of the Indians has improved since the independence, and the high levels of the economic growth over the past 2.5 decades have made more funds available to spend in the social service sector. Yet, the reality is that the third of the world's standard children under the 5 years, which is approximately 46.6 million, who have low height for age, lives in India. So, even though India has achieved a high economic growth in the past 2.5 decades, which has not resulted in its social development or the social progresses, especially in the health sector, and eradicating this stunting. And moving forward, a quarter of the children displays the wasting. That is approximately one-fourth of the children in India is reportedly under wasting, and this low weight for the height. Then as per this Global Nutrition Report 2018, it points out that the findings marks the wide variation in the stunting level in different parts of the country. So when it comes to the North and South division, the North India reports the highest number of the stunting cases compared to the South India, and with the district level data showing the high and very level of stunting mainly in the central and the northern India, which is approximately 30 and 40% respectively. So it states that the central India reports 30%, whereas the North India is having 40%, but it is less than 20% almost in entire state. And the states like Kerala is reportedly having high progress with respect to stunting. And this shows the important role played by the political commitment, administrative efficiency, literacy, and women empowerment in ensuring children health. So the report states that this political commitment and this administrative efficiency in each region is reflected in eradicating this stunting. So which also indirectly state that the South India is having a political commitment and better administrative efficiency, the literacy and women empowerment that make them ensuring the children's health. And further, the malnutrition is not a direct cause of the death, but it contributes to the mortality and morbidity by reducing the resistance to the infection, which make the children vulnerable to the diseases. There are a number of causes of death of children such as prematurity, low birth weight, etc. And moving further, another issue is that of the quality of nutrition in packaged foods, and it is available to the children. And as per the report, only 21% of those foods in India were rated as being healthy, and based on the overall energy, salt, sugar, and the saturated fats, etc. And there has been a report earlier that is most of the food products, especially the packaged foods, are not tested. Now let's analyze the measures taken by the government. So the government is implementing several schemes and programs under the umbrella scheme, that is Integrated Child Development Service, ICDS. So this scheme has a directly targeted the intervention to address the problems of malnutrition in the country. And this program primarily focuses on the pregnant women and the children under the age of 6 years. And all these schemes addresses one or the other aspects related to nutrition and have the potential to improve the nutritional outcomes in the country. Then the national framework to improve the nutrition has already existed in India. Then the Anganwadi service scheme, which incorporated under the Integrated Child Development Service, catered to the children under the age 6 and to the pregnant and the lactating woman. And the recently launched Poshan Abhiyan or the National Nutrition Mission is the flagship program of the Ministry of Women and Men and the Government of India, which ensures the convergence of the various programs. Now let's analyze the different programs that has been converged under the Poshan Abhiyan. And the schemes includes Anganwadi service, then Pradhan Mantri Madhur Vandana Yojana, which is primarily focusing on the lactating women and the pregnant women. Then the scheme for adolescent girls of the Ministry of Women and Child Development, and also the Janani Suraksha Yojana. Then the National Health Mission, Swachh Bharat Mission, Public Distribution System or the PDS, then the under the Department of Food and Public Distribution, and this MG Narega or the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment and Guarantee Scheme. So this all schemes has been incorporated under the Poshan Abhiyan in order to ensure the nutrition. Now let's analyze the way forward. The food and freedom go together. So if there is the freedom, then it can also ensure the accessibility into food and nutrition, and the availability of one strongly influences the access to the other. Among the factors affecting the quantity and quality of nutrition are the maternal education and aged marriage, that is the child marriage or the marriage after 18 plus year. Then the antenatal care, children's diet, and the household size. So these are the different factors which affects this quality of the nutrition. And moving forward, now that the mapping of the nutrition at the district level is available, so as in the Global Nutrition Report, it is incumbent on the state government to address this determining factors. So it is the responsibility of the primarily the responsibility of the state government, because at the nutrition level, different state faces different kinds of disparities and the challenges which has to be addressed regionally, and for this the state government has to take proactive stance. Then the social institutions can work to improve the nutrition and children's welfare in free society, and the absence of hunger enables people to develop their capabilities. Then the government should acknowledge the linkage and the commitment themselves to the improved nutritional policies. Then the Anganwadi service scheme, which incorporate the integrated child development services, if it is having or if it is not work well in several states, it must subject to a rigorous review, and a targeted intervention for the supplementary nutrition should be made. So with respect to this, the recent intervention or the recent innovation made by the Rajasthan government is mentionable. So we have already made a video on how the Rajasthan has reformed its Anganwadi centers and the under 5 child care. So you can watch that video to get the details of how Rajasthan has made a constructive or a more innovative approach to address these nutrition and the early childhood care. And further, India should invest more on its economic prosperity in its welfare system without binding itself in the restrictive budgetary formulation. So rather than just focusing or highlighting the budgetary allocation, we should be focusing on the outcome. So what outcomes we are receiving rather than the budgetary allocations that each year we are making. Then the Economic Survey 2017-8 puts the social service spending at the 6.6%, so which has shown a marginal increase from the 6%, but still this amount falls short of the total financial requirements to address the malnutrition problems in India. So which demands that the spending from the side of the government should be increased. Then the latest report on the stunting and wasting should convince the center that it need to understand the problem better and work with the state to give India's children a healthy future. So with this we are coming to the end of the discussion on this Global Nutrition Report 2018. Now let's get into the practice question. So this is the question for the day. That is, the combination of people living in poverty. The recent economic growth in India has led to a co-emergence of two types of malnutrition, undernutrition and overnutrition. So the question demands your comment on this statement. So we know that the malnutrition is of two types, undernutrition and the overnutrition. So both these are creating challenges. You can quote the recent findings from the Global Nutrition Report 2018 in order to substantiate your stance. So we have already discussed the issues or the challenges and the statistics from the undernutrition, and as well as we have discussed the facts regarding the overnutrition. So we have found that in urban areas the overnutrition is comparatively higher than the rural areas. So you can use all these facts in order to frame a well balanced answer. So with this we are coming to the end of